guys. How have you been? I hope you had a happy new year. 2020 is behind us. Ain't that great? I feel like we've had enough gloom and doom. I've been down and sad and all that. It's time to be a little more cheerful, a little more joyful. I thought, why not make a video where we could just talk about something fun? Something non-controversial. Something the whole family can enjoy. So, I kind of racked my brain. Wanted something fun, so I figured, abortion. Started in the A's, and that's what I come up with. Like, why not talk about abortion? That's always a hoot and fun. And, of course, no one better to talk about it than a man, because he has such a unique perspective on it. There could be sarcasm laced within this serious video, and so I just want to let everybody know that. So when I say things like that about a man's perspective, just know it is sarcasm. However, I'll be lacing in some truth with it also. So why do I want to talk about abortion? Pro-choice versus pro-life. Why do I even want to talk about it? To be honest, I don't really give a fuck about arguing either side of it. That's not the point of this video. I think more or less the point of this video is to air out a complaint of mine about how we argue it, and also to just kind of show how I came to the conclusion that I did. Because I talk a lot about trying to have your own thoughts, be open-minded, avoid groupthink, be a real, you know what I mean? Like, be aware of your own biases and try to come to your own conclusions, and form your own beliefs about things without letting one group or the other persuade you. Now, it would be very convenient to say about me, and I can definitely see this because I have both been pro-life and pro-choice. And during the time I was pro-life, I of course associated with the right wing. I was, I held all those beliefs, so you could very much say that I was indoctrinated into those ways. So of course I was going to be pro-life because that was part of the agenda. That was part of my tribe. But I slowly switched over to pro-choice. But look at me now. I'm a snowflake liberal now. So of course he's pro-choice, because I was persuaded by the left. And so I have to be aware of that. That is a possibility. That is a possibility that I was persuaded by my own group or tribe that I now associate with. But I think when I walk you through kind of why I believe, why I decided to be pro-choice, maybe it'll be clear that I got away from those biases. Because one of the reasons I think that that didn't affect my decision is I hate hearing people on the left I hate hearing the abortion argument, the pro-life, pro-choice argument. I get so tired of it because I think there's a lot of dishonesty there. I feel like people are being, what's the word? Disingenuous? Is that how you say that? And I'll explain that in a little bit because here it is. I think mostly what really upsets me is because a lot of it comes down to, is it life or not? That's the big argument, because the pro-life people believe it is murder. And so, of course, they have a very if you believe something is murder, then of course you're going to have some strong feelings on that, right? And of course you're going to fight that tooth and nail. You can't blame somebody for being pretty passionate if you think something is murder. So the pro-choice people instead of, making their argument whatever it may be, I think they want to just discredit the other side as if it's silly to make that assumption that we're talking about life here. And this is one of the things that bothers me about the argument, and especially when I hear people within my own groups, I'm in these groups and things, and I hear them saying stuff like, well, it's just it's a clump of cells, or it's a zygote, or it's I've even heard them relate to it as it's a parasite. And while a lot of these, some of these things may be true to an extent, and we're like, it's not quit referring to it as a baby, it's a fetus, I think we're being intellectually dishonest here. We all know that's a baby growing in there. No woman ever went to give birth and was shocked when a baby popped out. Like, we all know what's going on. There is a baby forming inside there, okay? So to pretend that that's not the truth is just, you're being dishonest right off the get-go, and you're not having a good argument, I think. And that's what bugs me. You can't make that kind of argument and seem that cold about it, and then when you have a friend who has a miscarriage at 7 months or whatever, and then show sympathy to that person, like, this is so sad and so horrible. And of course it is, but so there's this disconnect here between, well, why, if you believe what you said here a minute ago, then you shouldn't be mourning with his mother who just had a miscarriage at 7 months. She didn't lose a child. It was just a parasite, a leech, living inside of her. But, so we have to be realistic, and that's what I've talked about, being realistic about some of these things. So it comes down to, is it life or not? And if you think either side, if you think the science is settled on it, you're just wrong, because it just isn't. And it probably never will be, because it seems to fall more into a philosophical argument than a biological one. And if that's the case, then we know it probably will never be agreed, upon by everyone, of exactly when life does begin. So with that in mind, then that would mean that that's a tough pill to swallow when you are pro-choice, because now you have to admit it could be life. We could be terminating life, because we haven't defined when life starts. So we could be terminating life. That's, it's kind of hard to argue from that point for some people. And this has even affected some of the people that, I call the in-betweeners, that are pro-choice up to a point. There are people out there who are pro-choice but believe there should be a cutoff. Like, say, once the baby becomes viable, once the baby can live outside the womb, then they believe that is too far along, and at that point, this is a human being. And I can kind of, as crazy as it sounds, I can kind of see their point, because it is a lot easier if you look at this thing that's a peanut. It's a lot easier to say, yeah, that's not life. Get real. Come on. That's real easy, right? For most of us, not for the pro-life people, but for most of us, if we're being reasonable, it's real easy to look at this thing that hasn't formed yet, that is, that if it was outside of the body, it would see nothing, hear nothing, feel nothing. This, basically, it is a clump of cells, that just hasn't formed enough, right? So I can see that argument, but to me, you're letting emotions get involved there a little bit, because once you see that face, at 6 months, now I can see a face. Now this looks like a baby, right? So it gets real for some people. So I can understand that point. So I've done kind of shown my hand that I am pro-choice now, and I'm pro-choice right up to the age of 6, basically. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, that's sarcasm. But I am pro-choice pretty much up until birth, and that wasn't an easy decision. I'm not going to lie. The decision of, okay, where do you draw that line? You have to decide, because case by case, I would probably have a different feeling, right? Case by case, but you can't look at it that way, especially if you're talking about laws being passed and what's acceptable and what's not. You have to look at just the whole situation. And so I'm pro-choice right up until birth. And my very first reason for that, number one, 100%, is I think that should be the person's choice. I do believe in a woman's choice, because I know if it was growing in me, if it was me, then I should have that choice. I feel like you're encroaching on someone's freedom when you're forcing them to procreate. No one should be forced to create life. That should not ever, 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 ever be forced upon anyone. And not to mention the impact that has. The impact that has is far-reaching. It has an impact on your body, has an impact on your life for the rest of your life once it's born. Maybe you're not prepared to take care of that. And making these arguments about, adoption, what have you, is kind of, when we live in a world where obviously we have so many children not being taken care of, so many children in the foster care that are bouncing from home to home, and are, that this is a crazy argument to make, because like I said, most pro-life people, they're not really pro-life. They're just, I guess you'd call them anti-murder, I guess, but they're not so much caring about what happens to the, no skin off their back. It's not their responsibility. They just don't want you to murder a baby, but they're like, don't, that doesn't, and it doesn't, I mean, if abortion is indeed murdering babies, then it doesn't mean if you oppose it, then you're automatically obligated to take care of a child. That's, I recognize that's kind of a silly argument from our side as well, right? We have a lot of those. It seems like pro-life versus pro-choice is just full of all these arguments that they really aren't good arguments, and that's why, really, to be honest, I don't like I don't like arguing with somebody who is pro-life, just one-on-one arguing with them, because one, it is such an issue that you're never going to change their mind, and two, it's I kind of get where they're coming from, and they have to, I understand the process it took me to come to my belief, and I'm not gonna walk someone through that, and like I said, even this video, the point of this video isn't to try to persuade someone to be pro-choice. It's just to kind of walk you through maybe different things you're looking at, how to be objective and not let your own biases affect how you make decisions. So number 2, first of all, the woman's choice, I believe that wholeheartedly. If it's been said before, and I believe it's true, if men gave birth, abortion would have been legal from the get-go, and that's probably most definitely true. let's face it. But the second reason is we go to life. Where does life begin? And even though the science isn't in on it, that means I have to go to what I believe. What do I think? And for me, life does not begin until you have experienced life, until you have taken it in. If your existence has been confined to a womb, then you have not yet experienced life. And if you have not experienced life, then you simply have not lived. And if you have not lived, there is nothing to be taken away from you by disrupting your process into existence, if that makes sense. You're on a journey to existence, but you haven't yet begun. If that is cut short and you never make it, then you were never really there. That's just kind of my thoughts about it. That's where to me, a life never lived is a life never, and yeah, that can get. I often wonder. This is, for real. I often wonder if my wife and I, if we decided to have a child ourselves, biologically, and my wife were to miscarry at 7 months, 8 months, I wonder how that would affect me. I don't know. Because, I had a sister who was stillborn. And I know that affects my mom to this day. And I wonder sometimes, would that change my mind? And of course, it would also be harder for me to look at it objectively, because now my emotions would obviously be involved. And so I think it's easier to look at it objectively, having never lost a child that way, because I can look at it and I can understand the pain. But I think the pain of that is on this emotional level of, you're envisioning this child that will be and all that it will be, and then you kind of give, if it makes sense, you have given life to this baby that has yet to live, but you have given life to it through your own thoughts and imagination, and imagining what that baby will be and how you will love it and how you will raise it and all of those things. So you fell in love with this being before it even is, if that makes sense. So I think that is, where you can understand the pain that someone would have. But it muddies the water. I think that it does. It makes the argument complicated to grieve the loss of a baby in a miscarriage and then say it's not a death when an abortion is performed at this same juncture in time. Right? It's weird. And there's so many emotional arguments that you can make. You hear the arguments all the time, like, just think of what this child could have been, what he might have done. There could have been a cure for cancer. And all these things are appeals to emotion that really shouldn't be in this argument, because they're pretty much null and void. If I can use the exact same arguments against you, well, he could have also, think of the murderers that were aborted. Think of the rapists that were aborted. Or God forbid you use the Christian argument for the Christians who believe in hell. Think of all the children who would have grown up, died, and went to hell. Literally, we've saved millions of lives from hell. And if most Christians believe that these babies being aborted actually are alive, therefore they go to heaven once they're aborted. So there's not much, if you're a Christian, this abortion's a pretty positive thing, to be honest. But I try to keep all those emotional things out of it when coming to my decision. And honestly, it's, to me, abortion, it's not just cut and dry and an easy thing. Like I said, with deciding on, okay, am I one of those in betweeners? Is there a cutoff for me? Because I get a little squeamish thinking about a full term baby being aborted. But it sets my mind at ease if you can tell me the mother's life is at risk. Or you can tell me, well, it wasn't until month 9 that we realized this baby has a disease that will cause it to have nothing but a life of pain, suffering, misery. And so, all those things make me feel better. But you can't base your decision on that, because, and to me, you can't really, like I said, when you're talking about laws being made, it can't be a case-by-case scenario where, what are you going to do? Set up something where it goes before a judge and he decides if it's okay? No, you got to be okay with it, whether that child is in danger of being born and living a life of pain and misery, or the mother at the last minute decided she doesn't want to go through with this birth of a fully healthy, fetus. That's tough. I'll be honest. I'm not for that. I don't want to see that. But at the same time, I guess for the sake of all the others, I would have to agree with a law allowing that. If that makes sense? I wouldn't necessarily agree with that decision, but I would agree with a law allowing that, if that makes any sense at all. Because it's, like I said, really, tough. Even here now, like talking about it, is difficult, because you find yourself wanting to pull back and almost, like, how sure are you? I think in conclusion here now, after I've managed to piss off both sides, is if you're pro-choice, great. I'm happy to have you on my side. And I know you probably don't like the way I argue this. Most pro-choice people will be like, shut the hell up. But I guess what I would say is, if you are pro-choice and you want to argue the pro-choice side, just don't pretend like there's no argument on the other side. I think that's what upsets me. Quit pretending like we don't all know there's a baby cooking in there. We know that, okay? Some people will do what? They act like they get offended when someone uses the word baby when talking about the fetus. That's not a baby. Well, I mean, yeah, it kind of is, and I'm sure people are going to tell me how, no, it's not, but it kind of is. We know what's in there. But anyway, now that I've fully pissed everybody off, I guess it's time for me to go. But Happy New Year, you guys. Here's to hoping 2021 is somewhat better than 2020. I don't see it being a lot better. We got a long way to go, but I do see hope. I feel like there's a light at the end of the tunnel that isn't a train, I hope. Honestly, at this point, my biggest hope for 2021, this is about as optimistic as I can be. My biggest hope is that we get on the right track to getting things back in order to where we can have a decent 2022. That's about as optimistic as I am. Is maybe we can get this shit sorted out and have a decent 2022. But anyway, guys, if you're pro-life, I want you to hit that like button. If you are pro-choice, I want you to also hit that like button. If you are undecided or pro-life or pro-choice, I want you to hit subscribe and tap that little bell, the whole 9 yards. And understand this, either way, I love you and I want the best for you. And may God bless you and guide you through this year and help you overcome any obstacles or that life may throw your way or any sarcasm that I might throw your way. But that's it. That's all I got to say. I'm going to go in here and watch TV and